Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Nitro Talk here on Everything Nitro. I am your host, Andrew Morales, and today we are excited to be joined by driver of the Jim Dunn Racing, Dodge DePinto, Blaze, KGC, Moon Eyes equipped, Nitro Funny Car, Jim Campbell. I got all that right, Jim?
Yes, you did. That was perfect.
Some of the best looking bodies on tour, I must say. We were just speaking about that off air. Some of the greatest bodies you'll ever see on a drag strip are the Jim Dunn Racing cars, so make sure and check that out. But like most of us, Jim, you grew up going to the drag races at an early age. What are some of the things you remembered as a kid at the racetrack, and who were some of the drivers you looked up to the most?
Well, when I was a young man and used to go to the track, and I dragged my dad there, and of course dragged my mom. Obviously, moms don't like it as much as dads,
Right.
But it was loud, burns your eyes with nitro. But I've loved drag racing since I was a little guy, and just to watch in my era, it was the nostalgia funny cars. So I was watching guys like my owner Jim Dunn and Tom McHugh and Don Perdome and all those guys. So it always was a dream of mine to sit behind the wheel of one of these nitro burning machines.
And growing up in Huntington Beach, you had a lot of drag racing around you. I must guess.
We did. There's Orange County Raceway. You had Lions Drag Strip. I actually grew up in Phoenix and moved to Huntington Beach about 35, 40 years ago. So where I lived in Phoenix, we had Beeline Dragway, and that's where I spent a lot of time.
That's interesting. So Phoenix guy at heart, but Huntington Beach is where it's at for you. Okay.
Correct. That's where I was born and raised and adopted from. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A lot of fans today know you as Jim Campbell, the 11,000 horsepower Nitro Funny Car driver. But before that, many knew you as Jim Campbell, the paramedic, the EMT. Talk about that, like life before drag racing.
Well, I've had an interesting life. I love helping people and always being a first responder and being in the thick of things. I guess you could call me an adrenaline junkie. It is what it is. It's kind of like driving a funny car. No two calls you go on are the same, and no two runs in a funny car are the same. That's for sure.
When you look back, at that time of your life and in your journey, how has that career kind of helped you grow as a race car driver?
Well, what it did is it took a lot of fright out of things, so there's not much that scares me. At the same time, it also prepared me for emergencies. So, driving a funny car is great until something happens, it blows up, catches on fire.
Right.
So then it takes the no panic mode out of that, and you kind of fall back on what you know and make sure you get the car stopped, get the fire out, and get out.
I'm driving a little bit ahead, but you drive for Jim Dunn Racing, a guy who's had many drivers in his career. His own son, Mike Dunn, Kenji Okazaki, Frank Pedregon, Al Hoffman, Tony Bartone. So many drivers have gone through the Jim Dunn Racing camp. And are the stories true? Is Jim Dunn really that tough of an owner?
Jim Dunn's awesome. He's just so passionate about what he does. And that man sits at the track from the time we get there to the time we leave to probably the time he falls asleep thinking about how he can make this funny car run faster. And it's really cool to drive for a legend. I've even told Jim it's so cool when we're sitting in the ready box and I look up and I think, wow, I used to watch the movie Funny Car Summer.
Right.
And, now I'm driving for the legend Jim Dunn. So it is really a really cool thing.
And Jim Dunn also grew up a fireman. Did that kind of pique a little interest when he saw Jim Campbell out there? The fireman?
It may have, excuse me, starting when I was driving the car and stuff. Well, let's go back to the beginning. I licensed at Frank Hawley's drag racing school, which I have nothing great things to say about Frank. If anybody out there wants to become a future drag racer, definitely Frank Hawley is one of the guys you want to go to. Drove the alcohol car, the nostalgia car, got licensed in that, got an opportunity to drive the Worsham's car, got licensed in Famosa Raceway in Bakersfield in 2015, ran half the season in Dell's and Chuck's car, the CSFS car, which I ran my first 3-second runs at the U.S. Nationals, which is obviously our big race. And then drove Terry Haddock's car a little bit now and then. And at the end of that, I wound up getting a phone call from John Dunn, and they were, looking for to replace their drivers, or they was, had about 5 or 6 guys they were looking at, and I wound up getting it. And I think probably one of the main reasons is being the new guy. I didn't have any bad habits to break because I didn't have any habits. So now that I've been driving it long enough, every once in a while he'll jump on me and say, hey, this is what you're doing right. This is what you're doing wrong. But that's what I love about Jim. he always lets me know how to improve and what we can do to improve. And, John Dunn, who does the clutch, and Diane and John, it's just a family operation, but it really is an honor and a privilege to drive for a legend like Jim.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Frank Hawley Drag Racing School. What made you pick up the phone and call Frank Hawley? I know you're good friends with Jack Beckman. Am I right?
That is correct. And that's actually who set this whole thing up. So it started out as a bucket list / bet. And I told him I could drive one of your Nitro Funny Cars. And he's like, sure, whatever. And so when I went out to Frank and drove the alcohol car, that right there just made me want to drive a Nitro Funny Car. And I told Frank, I'm going to drive a Nitro Funny Car. And I'm sure he hears that all the time through everybody who goes through it. And I wound up doing it. I actually went through the class with Chad Green. And it's kind of cool that Chad and I now line up against each other, both in a fuel funny car, considering neither one of us had drove anything that fast prior to.
What is it really like going to Frank Hawley's and getting, to pick his brain?
Oh, Frank's phenomenal. I talk to him as much as I can. Of course, I see him at the Gator Nationals. That's where they're based out of, but they do travel around the country. What I like about Frank so much, and Jack is a good teacher too. He teaches at Frank Hawley's school. And it was just really cool how analytical Frank is about telling you how to drive a car. They can show you all the procedures and everything else. When you get in the car, you're on your own. So there's nobody sitting next to you or whatever. So you've got to do your best of what they tell you. And my first couple of runs in the nostalgia car, it kind of inched over towards the center line. And Frank would go, where are you looking at? And I said, I'm looking, in front of the car. He goes, no, you're not. He goes, I told him I was looking at the end of the track. And he goes, no, you're not. And then he has it on video camera. And you look at it, you see the cars start to veer over. And so you could argue with Frank and you're going to lose. I've had some of the greatest people in the world teach me about drag racing, starting with Frank Hawley, then being around Dell and Chuck Worsham, which are absolutely phenomenal people as well. Jack, Jeff Wren, Corey Lee. So I've just had a bunch of people that are just outstanding drag racers. And I just try to be a sponge and absorb as much knowledge as I can.
And you mentioned, the Worsham family. You mentioned Terry Haddock. Getting your feet wet in a Nitro Funny Car. 2016, you make your debut. What was the feeling of finally being able to compete at the highest level in drag racing? I mean, Nitro Funny Car.
Butterflies all the way. My first event was the Winter Nationals in 2016. I remember it very well. I raced Alexis DeJoria. I lost to her, but I ran a 4.04. And those were the days that we raced with the laid-back headers. And I'll tell you, those cars were a handful with the laid-back headers. Not that they're not a handful now, but I learned on the hard cars. And then having Jim Dunn as a mentor for the last 6 years, there's just nothing like it.
And you grabbed that first round win in Vegas about 5 races into the season. So that's got to probably give you a lot of confidence coming from a guy who just got his nostalgia license, crossed it over to a Nitro Funny Car license. I mean, things are happening pretty quick for Jim Campbell at this stage of his career.
It was absolutely totally cool. I remember that as well. Both myself and I believe Steve Chrisman, we both won in the Worsham cars in Las Vegas. I beat Tim Wilkerson on my first round win ever. So it was really, really cool. The butterflies it goes through and all that stuff. It's amazing. But once you're strapped in there and the car's lit, it's just all a matter of getting that car down the track and trying to keep it in the middle.
Walk us through that first year of yours as a Nitro Funny Car driver, because a lot of us don't get to experience that, and you only get to be a rookie one time in your career.
That is very true. I remember the first time I put on my fire suit at Pomona, and again, that was a home race. And again, I live in Huntington Beach, California, so having all my friends there and everybody, I'm thinking, oh gosh, please don't do anything stupid. And you got in there. The car was a very good car, and just got lucky and went down the track. We qualified well, and there's just nothing like it on the planet. It's so hard to describe what it was like right at the beginning. And then as you get into the car and you get going throughout the season, you get a little more comfort zone. I don't know if anybody's comfortable always in the car.
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of full-time drivers and stuff that have been doing this a lot longer than I have. But I don't think, I still get a little bit of butterflies and stuff like that when I get in the car. And not so much because I'm scared of the car, nothing like that, because I'm not. It's just you want to do so good and you
Right.
don't want to do anything stupid. And you definitely don't want to crash the car and you don't want to blow up. But, well, we know that comes with the territory sometimes.
I assume being a first responder for most of your life, claustrophobia is something that never affected you. I mean, these cars, especially a funny car, such an enclosed cockpit. You have 11,000 horsepower, Hemi right in front of you, body, coming down. Do those, I mean, I've heard drivers myself say, what the heck am I doing in this thing? And it's just part of, like you mentioned, you get used to it and it's your job and you wouldn't do anything else in the world. So have you ever had that claustrophobia, like what the heck am I doing in this thing feeling?
I think the first time when I got my license, the first time you stomped the throttle when I got my license in Formosa, that was absolutely probably one of the most terrifying moments because you have no idea what's coming. And then you hit the throttle the first time, and then you have a little bit of idea. But again, each run changes. And when that thing, glues up, and especially when it gets about mid-track and that clutch goes 1-to-1 and you're just flying, you think, yeah, especially once it gets to the finish line, you're like, that was awesome. That was absolutely
Right.
cool. If it doesn't go right, you're thinking, why did I pick this job again?
And you mentioned a little bit, we kind of touched on, the opportunity to drive for Jim Dunn, but you grabbed the man's attention, one of the greatest of all times. I mean, still out there. Today, John Force, Jim Dunn, Connie Clutta are the names that we still talk about who are pioneers of the sport, people who were there from the beginning. So kind of talk about that phone call with Jim when you knew you got the job, when you saw your name on the side of that Nitro Funny Car, and you stepped into a car that had a pretty big sponsorship. 7-Eleven was the first funny car you drove for Jim Dunn Racing. So behind the scenes, how did that really go down? And you mentioned there was a couple other guys that, were considered for the spot, but you outshined them. You were a brand new driver coming into the sport, 1 year of experience, you got a round win. And not only that, but in your first year with Jim Dunn, you go to 2 semifinals. You have 2 semifinals appearances. So he made a good choice from the beginning. Just what was that experience like seeing your name on that car for the first time and face to face with Big Jim Dunn?
Well, it was awfully cool. I mean, there's nothing like sitting down. The whole Dunn family is absolutely outstanding, and I just enjoy being with them at all the races. Jim, Diane, John. John, his daughter, is now working on the clutch too. Just the whole family. James, the truck driver, he does the heads as well. So it's just really a great operation. And we've had the same guys on the team. Randy, our car chief, does a great job. But when I was sitting down with Jim Dunn, of course, I'm not a starstruck person, but it is funny, cool, since I love Funny Car Summer, to be sitting there with Jim Dunn, 35 years later, thinking this guy was a legend that I grew up watching. And how cool is it that I get the opportunity to drive for him and learn from him? And he was one of the best levers in the business. And, I try so hard on the lights, and cutting a good light is easier said than done. So
Right.
yeah, I'm trying my best on it, but he was one of the best levers in the business. And he's really good about telling me, you listen, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to focus. This is what you did good. So you can't beat that experience level that he has.
I think one of the coolest things when it comes to qualifying, first round, second round, is seeing Jim Dunn out in front of your car, still pulling you into the lights, still taking off the throttle stop. Like, it's so awesome to see him out there still giving every ounce of, energy he has left, because he could have been sitting on a beach right now enjoying the rest of his retirement, but he's not. He's out there. He's enjoying drag racing with you as his driver. And another question I want to ask is, what's it like being in the driver that does the shortest burnout?
Well, that's the way he has the car set up, and everybody asks why we do a short burnout, and I give them one simple answer: because my boss told me to. So,
Right.
I just do what Jim tells me to do. That's the way he's got the car set up. I think primarily he doesn't want to get the clutch hot, but that's the primary thing that he wants me to do, and whatever he asks me to do, that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. I'm sure guys would wear address and do a short burnout just to be able to drive that car today.
Agree.
But one of the cool moments, and this is awesome. I'm a huge rock fan. I grew up a huge rock fan. But you did an appearance with 7-Eleven your rookie year, and you saw Dak Prescott. You saw Gene Simmons. You have a photo with Gene Simmons in front of your race car, and I believe he says, "Hey, man, I love funny cars." What was that like to see Gene Simmons?
You know, it was pretty cool. We did the 7-Eleven convention out in Las Vegas. It was myself, Gene Simmons, Dak Prescott, Jason Giambi, and Tony Kanaan, who at that time drove the 7-Eleven Indy car. And, you know, just hanging out with all these guys that are really cool dudes. A lot of them, like I said, I'm a big Kiss fan. So I've been watching, you know, Kiss since I was a kid. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'll admit that on podcast here. So, you know, that was cool to hang out. And then Jason Giambi and Tony Kanaan, you know, is an Indy 500 winner. And they're probably looking at Jim Campbell, who? So I'm the least famous out of that group. But absolutely all great people. We had a blast. Tony Kanaan and I got along great. Congrats to Tony. He did really good in the Indy 500. So I'm stoked to see that. But it was really a cool thing. And I had a blast doing that.
So you've gone through explosions, backfires, a couple of close calls in your career, like back in 2016 with John Force in Las Vegas. Again, that's your first year driving with Jim Dunn Racing. And here, 16-time veteran John Force comes across. It's in the shutdown in your lane, and you manage to get out of it unharmed, no damage to the car. What goes through your mind as a driver when things don't go as planned?
Holy crap. That's just the first thing that goes through your head. Please don't crash. Please don't hit the wall. Please don't hit anybody. It was definitely a unique experience. I had no idea it's coming. These things are moving so quick. Your vision in these cars are limited. And I had no idea that he was in front of me until he was in front of me. And then when he pulled his chutes, it took all the air off my car. So I had one of two choices, either crawl up underneath of him or try to go around him and or pull some brake. And I was just going too fast. So I went around him and thank God we didn't crash. You know, it happens. We've seen it happen this weekend. These cars can get away from you really, really quick. It's the driver's job to know when to lift off the throttle.
And we've heard drivers say it who have gone from top fuel to funny car to top fuel. There's nothing like driving the short wheel-based Nitro Funny Car because you're really having to work the steering wheel. When a cylinder drops, I mean, it'll send you any which way. And it's up to the driver at that point to save the car. We see J.R. Todd do it this weekend. We've seen Hagan do it this weekend. It happens and it's happening more often. That's just how violent these cars are. And we're still going to 1,000 feet. I mean, so much is happening in 1,000 foot nowadays. I mean, if somebody would have told you 20 years ago that a Nitro Funny Car is going 330 miles per hour in 1,000 feet, would you believe that?
No, not even close. And, you know, I've watched these things progress and progress and progress. And to think that we go that fast, if we took it back and we went back to a quarter mile, what would we be doing? 350, 360?
Right.
So it's just crazy. When this went to 1,000 foot, the crew chiefs out here are all absolutely very, very smart people. So they adapted to 1,000 foot well. And these cars are a handful. The horsepower that they put out now compared to, say, 20 years ago, yeah, we just didn't, you know, think it would be that much. And just like everything else, technology, money makes you go fast.
Right. So we're really pushing the boundaries of what these funny cars, dragsters, and these parts and pieces can do. Dom Lagana said it best. He said, there's nothing good that happens in that extra 320 feet. So
I've heard the exact same thing. Jim Dunn said that too. Listen, that last 320 feet is just an opportunity to blow up more stuff and break more parts.
There's actually a funny video from Kenji Okasaki years ago, and he had a bad fire. I'm not sure if that was Maple Grove, and it was a pretty interesting interview because the first person they interviewed was Jim Dunn, and Jim Dunn said,
it just looked like it laid over about halfway down, and that's what I told him. You're going to have to burn a couple times, get the experience knowing what a motor laying over does. And so now he's got that experience. We'll build another one and go. But it'll take him a year to get all the burns and scars everybody else earns. You got to earn it. You can't buy it. Thank you.
Does Jim ever, you know, hey kid, this is you here. You gotta you got to take the ball and run with it.
He does, like I said, Jim's been such a great mentor to me. We all know that every time you strap into one of these things and you stop the throttle, you really don't know what's going to happen. Whether you drop a hole, like you said, or, the car grenades the body off of it. Basically, Jim wants me to do the best that I can and hopefully not blow up any parts that I don't have to. And, over time, the more seat time you get, the more feel you get for the car. So you kind of are able to pick out things, again, versus a John Force who's got, 15, 20,000 runs, where Jim Campbell's got 500-600 runs. There's just a lot of knowledge, and you learn something every run, and that's what makes it special. But nobody wants to blow the body off of it.
Definitely not. And one thing I could say about the Jim Dunn racing car, since you've been the driver of this car, we have seen it progress every single year. And now we're seeing it progress race by race. You come off of a race in Epping, the New England Nationals. You ran your career best ET not once, but twice. You come off some great runs, great performance, driving the car as great as you ever have in your career. What kind of confidence does that give you?
Oh, absolutely. We've been working on it so hard, and it's been a 4.0 car, and we weren't a 4.0 car. We wanted to be a 390s car. And Jim and John sat down and just put that brain power and all that experience they have together and said, we're going to turn up the wick on this, and let's see if you can handle it, Jim. And I think I proved I can drive a 395 car. So to the rest of the competition out there and stuff, we're out here to win this. We want to make the countdown, and we finished number 10 in the world last year, and we'd like to bump that up a few notches.
And you guys are going to have a great opportunity at doing that, kind of setting yourself up at the right time of the season. We're about halfway through the regular season. This has to give you guys a green light moving forward. I mean, the car is consistent. You're consistent. You're just getting better weekend by weekend, even on the reaction times. I know you're kind of hard on yourself with reaction times, but your reaction times, it doesn't phase you who's in that other lane, as it shouldn't. And so watching you progress as a driver has been so much fun to watch. Watching the Jim Dunn racing car outperform a lot of the guys that we think. I mean, you guys got down the track, I believe, all 3 qualifying runs, and Robert Height only got down in 1. So when you compare not necessarily numbers, but consistency, you guys are going in the direction. I'm sure, when the weekend's over, when you go home, that's what makes you feel good.
It really does. When I got out of the car and they told me I ran a 396.5, I was stoked, and I couldn't have been happier. And I think that showed on the interview. And then turn around on Saturday in the heat of the day and go out and drop a 3.950. We've been trying to do this, for the last, 6-7 races. And what's really cool is that Jim Dunn's known for hot tracks. And now that we're entering all these summer races, this is where hopefully we'll get a little bit of an advantage and get some more round wins as we set up for the U.S. Nationals. And then from there, as long as you make the countdown, it's anybody's game. So it's really a tale of 2 stories. You've got the regular season, and then once we finish the U.S. Nationals, you got the countdown. Everybody's separated by 10 points except for 1 and 2. And you go out there and win a couple of rounds. The next thing you know, you're sitting 6th.
So the tradition of drag racing has always been 4 rounds of qualifying. Do you, as a driver, and Jim Dunn as a tuner and team owner, do you guys like and enjoy the 3 rounds of qualifying, or would you prefer to go back to 4? If it was your guys' call.
Well, that's a tough call on that. It obviously costs more to run 4 runs. I mean, the 3-run situation is, look, it makes for a long day on Friday to go out and make one run at 8:30 at night. And I understand for the fans, but through this pandemic for the last 2 years, and now one of the big issues is trying to get parts. This has been an issue all year long, and Jim and John did some great pre-planning in the off season to make sure that we had the adequate and new parts that we needed to get through the season. Not saying that we never need stuff, but Jim and John have a great handle on making sure that we have the parts we need and new and good parts.
And you just mentioned a little while ago how Jim Dunn and that car love hot racetracks. Some of the most success you've had, and you're a driver to watch when we get to this track, Auto Club Raceway in Pomona. Last year at the Summer Winter Nationals, when they had to push that back, you make a semifinal round appearance, taking out tough competition after tough competition. And that was a lot of fun to watch. So as a driver, but when it's actually happening, how much more pressure does that put on you just to stay in your groove and stay ready?
Well, I treat every run the same. Obviously, you can't let the pressure get to you, no matter whether it's the first round or whether it's semifinals or the finals. You just got to treat every run exactly the same, but you treat it at that time. And yes, last year, the winter/summer nationals, it was so brutally hot that, even Justin Ashley had some problems and stuff. So it's just one of those, by the time we put all the gear that we have on and get strapped in the car, usually 5 pairs back, it doesn't take long to roast in there. And that's why during these summer races, it's an absolute must, like it is all times, to stay well hydrated.
And before I let you go, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, but you guys have had some of the most awesome paint schemes. Some of the coolest bodies I think that's ever been put on a Dodge. You've had Cattleman's Cut. You're riding DePinto now. The Moon Eyes, a fan favorite. I love seeing that car and the switch from white to yellow to neon every Pomona race. Blaze, I loved that. I think that's my new favorite car. That Blaze car with the purple flames and the blue. Do you have a favorite up to this point in your career? Of all the cars that you've driven so far, do you have a favorite?
I like them all, and I give all the credit to Jim and John Dunn. John does a great job on doing the design of these cars. And every time I get to look or get to see this car, what body it's going to be, because we may run 5-6 different bodies per year or different sponsors. And every one of these cars are beautiful. And it really, really is cool. The Pinto car right now, I love the blue color on it. The Blaze car you talked about. I love the purple with the flames on it. Kind of reminds me of my first car with a CSF S car that had the flames on it. The KGC car that we run in Las Vegas always looks cool. So, and of course, Moon Eyes is infamous. It is really cool to sit and drive the Moon Eyes car and think, wow, the history of Moon Eyes and all that stuff. It just, like I said, every car they put out there, I know John puts his heart and soul into making sure that this is one of the nicest looking cars on the track at all times.
One more question before I let you go. Have you always been a funny car guy? Or has Top Fuel been a kind of an interest of yours?
No, I've always been a funny car guy. I've had some friends of mine ask me, do you want to go Top Fuel? And listen, would I say no to a Top Fuel dragster? Not in a million years. But am I a funny car guy? I am. I did a podcast not too long ago, and I had somebody ask me if I drive a jet car. Listen, I love the marshmallow burners, and I would like to drive a jet car too. So there's not much out there that I wouldn't take a shot at driving.
I love it. So I can only imagine what Jim Campbell hoisting a trophy in a Blue Camping World hat interview will be like. So we're extremely looking forward to that. And you are becoming a fan favorite before our eyes, just because of the character you are. You have Jim Dunn. Everybody knows Jim Dunn. So the package duo that Jim Dunn Racing brings with you as a driver is spectacular. And I appreciate watching it every weekend.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I have a blast. Listen, one of the coolest things about NHRA drag racing, and I want to give a shout out to NHRA. I really want to give a shout out to the Safety Safari, who does a phenomenal job. These guys are there before anybody else gets there, get the track ready, and they're the last guys to leave. And they're the guys that we depend on to protect us. So I want to shout that out. And to all of our first responders and military, we appreciate what you do for us, because without them, we don't get to do what we do. So, and Andrew, you're always a pleasure to talk to. I have a blast with you. You always got a smile. And to all the fans out there, I love people. And I'm one of the fortunate guys that gets to sit behind the seat of one of these, but I'm also a big fan. So anytime any of these fans are in the pits and I'm out and about, I'm more than happy to talk to them, indulge. We are all the same people. I just happen to have a cool job.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Jim Campbell. Look for Jim at your next national event. He will be there, Jim Dunn Racing. You could bet they will make some good qualifying laps, and I bet you they even go some rounds too. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Andrew. And it's a pleasure being on your show, and I look forward to it again.